The council chamber floated in the void between stars, a massive structure where 300 species gathered to maintain peace across the galaxy. Today that peace was about to shatter. War Marshal Krethva stood at the center of the circular floor, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of dominance. His species, the Vrelians, had conquered 47 worlds in the last 2 centuries. Their fleet numbered 12,000 warships, each one capable of destroying a city with a single blast. When Krethva spoke, entire civilizations listened. The human species will surrender 70% of their resources, Krethva announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. They will accept Vrelian governance. They have 30 solar cycles to comply. Admiral Minho Kim sat in the human delegation section, his face calm despite the rage building inside him. He was a tall man with graying hair, wearing the dark blue uniform of Earth's United Defense Fleet. Next to him, Ji-hee Park reviewed the terms on her tablet, her expression unreadable. She had served as humanity's chief diplomat for 5 years, and she had learned to hide her emotions well. Around them, the other species whispered among themselves. The council members from older civilizations looked at the humans with pity. Some of the younger species watched with barely hidden satisfaction. Humanity had only joined the galactic community 80 years ago. They were newcomers, and newcomers needed to learn their place. "This is madness," Tae-hyung Choi whispered from behind Minho. He was the director of Earth's military intelligence, a position that had taught him to see threats others missed. "They're not even trying to negotiate. They want war," Minho nodded slowly. "They think we're easy prey." The Vrelian delegation had brought combat footage to support their demands. Holographic displays showed their fleet destroying defensive positions, their soldiers crushing resistance on conquered worlds. The message was clear. Resistance was futile. Captain Sumin Lee, who commanded Earth's flagship, leaned forward in her seat. She was young for her position, only 32, but she had earned her rank through skill, not politics. "Admiral, our fleet stands at 387 operational ships. Intelligence says they'll bring at least 8,000 to Earth if we refuse." "I know the numbers, Captain," Minho replied quietly. Ji-hee stood up, straightening her formal diplomatic robes. The chamber fell silent as she walked to the speaking platform. Every eye turned toward the human representative. Some species expected her to negotiate, to buy time, to show weakness that could be exploited. She activated the speaking crystal, and her voice carried to every corner of the massive chamber. "The United Earth government has reviewed the Vrelian demands." She paused, letting the moment stretch. "We refuse." The silence lasted only a heartbeat before laughter erupted from the Vrelian section. Krethva's mandibles clicked together in amusement. "You refuse? Do you understand what you're saying, human?" "I understand perfectly," Ji replied, her voice steady. "Earth will not surrender its sovereignty. We will not submit to foreign governance. We will not pay tribute to any empire. Is that clear enough for you?" Krethva's laughter stopped. His eyes, all 6 of them, focused on Ji-hee with sudden intensity. "Then you choose extinction. Your species has been in space for less than a century. You have fewer than 400 ships. We have 12,000. You cannot win this war." "Perhaps," Ji-hee said, "but we will fight it anyway." She returned to her seat. Minho placed a hand on her shoulder briefly, a gesture of support. Around the chamber, species began talking urgently among themselves. Some expressed shock at human foolishness. Others calculated how they might profit from Earth's resources after the Vrelians conquered it. The Kitharan ambassador, an old creature whose species had been exploring space for 10,000 years, approached the human delegation. His translator device buzzed softly. "Ambassador Park, please reconsider. The Vrelians have never lost a war. Your species has so much potential. Don't throw it away on pride." Ji-hee met his eyes. "We're not acting on pride, Ambassador. We're acting on principle." Krethva raised one of his forearms, and the chamber quieted again. "Very well. The human species has chosen war. We grant you 1 week to reconsider. After that, my fleet will arrive at Earth. We will take what we demand by force. And when your cities burn, remember that you chose this." The Vrelian delegation left the chamber. Other species began filing out as well, some stopping to express sympathy to the humans, others avoiding them entirely. Within an hour, only a handful of delegations remained. Minho gathered his staff in a private meeting room attached to the council chamber. Tae-hyung was already pulling up tactical data on the holographic display. Suman studied fleet positions. Yuna Kang, Minho's senior tactical advisor, ran calculations on her tablet. 14 days, Yuna said quietly. That's how long it will take the Vrelian fleet to reach Earth from their closest staging area. They'll bring 8,000 ships. The rest will secure their supply lines and protect their territory. 8,000 versus 387, Suman repeated. Those are terrible odds. Minho walked to the display showing the Vrelian fleet composition. Battleships, carriers, destroyers, cruisers. It was an armada built over centuries of conquest. Taehyung, send the activation code. Taehyung looked up from his tablet. Are you sure, Admiral? Once we do this, there's no hiding it anymore. They've declared war on humanity, Minho replied. There's nothing left to hide. Send it. Taehyung typed a complex series of commands into his secure terminal. Across the solar system, hidden signals reached dozens of classified facilities. Shipyards that officially didn't exist powered up. Construction bays that had been dark on every council scan began to glow with activity. Ships that had never been registered started running their engines. Protocol Sentinel is active, Taehyung confirmed. All hidden assets are now operational. Yuna pulled up new fleet numbers on the display. The count started climbing. 400 ships, 600, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000. The numbers kept rising. Suman stared at the display, her mouth slightly open. How long have we been building these? 70 years, Minho answered. Since we first joined the council. Since we first realized how this galaxy really works. The final count appeared. 2,847 warships. Each one equipped with technology the council had never seen. Each one crewed by personnel who had trained in secret. Each one ready for war. Jihye joined them in the room, closing the door behind her. The council is convinced we're committing suicide. Good, Minho said. Let them think that. The Vrelians certainly do. He turned to face his staff. We're going to fight this war and we're going to win it. Not because we're stronger. Not because we're more advanced. But because we're going to fight in ways they can't imagine. And then, Jihye asked. Minho looked at the display showing their hidden fleet. Then we teach this galaxy a lesson it should have learned a long time ago. That peace isn't kept by allowing the strong to prey on the weak. It's kept by making sure everyone is too afraid to start a war in the first place. Outside the station, the Vrelian fleet began forming up for its journey to Earth. Across the galaxy, species watched and waited for the massacre everyone expected. None of them knew that humanity had been preparing for this moment since the day they first left their solar system. The trap was set. Now they just had to wait for the predators to walk into it. The Catharan archive facility existed in a pocket dimension, accessible only through carefully controlled portals. For 11,000 years, the Catharans had recorded galactic history. Every major war, every first contact, every rise and fall of civilizations. Their neutrality was absolute. They never took sides, never interfered. They only watched and remembered. Archivist Velmon pulled up humanity's file 3 days after the Vrelian declaration of war. He was old, even by Catharan standards, and had personally documented the rise of 17 different species to galactic prominence. The humans intrigued him, though he couldn't quite say why. The file opened with Earth's first contact 80 years ago. A small explorer ship had stumbled into council space, its crew confused and excited. The humans had developed faster-than-light travel independently, which was rare but not unheard of. What followed was more interesting. Velmon read through the military assessments. Human warfare was surprisingly advanced for such a young species. They had nuclear weapons before they left their planet. They had developed biological weapons and then banned them. They created artificial intelligence specifically designed for combat, then restricted it because they feared what it might do. He pulled up the casualty reports from human history. In 10,000 years of recorded civilization, humans had fought over 15,000 major conflicts. The numbers were staggering. World War I, 20 million dead. World War II, 70 million dead. Smaller wars scattered across centuries, each one killing hundreds of thousands or millions. But something caught Velmon's attention. Every single conflict had been human versus human. Civil wars, territorial disputes, ideological battles, resource conflicts, religious wars. They had spent 10,000 years fighting themselves. Velmon leaned back in his chair, his 3 eyes blinking in sequence as he processed this information. Humanity had never faced an external threat to their species. Every war they had ever fought was against other humans. They had never experienced what it meant to fight for survival against something that wasn't them. He opened a communication channel to the Galactic Council. This information needed to be shared. On Earth, Hyunwoo Nam sat in his office at the Historical Warfare Division, surrounded by books and holographic displays. His job was to study human military history and find lessons that could apply to modern space combat. It was a job most people thought was pointless. After all, what could ancient Earth wars teach them about fighting aliens? Everything, as it turned out. Hyunwoo had been reviewing tactics from Earth's Second World War when the activation code for Protocol Sentinel arrived. He stood up so fast his chair fell backward. 70 years. They had waited 70 years for this moment. He grabbed his tablet and rushed to the command center. Admiral Minho needed historical analysis, and he needed it fast. In orbit around Mars, Commander Hana Shin oversaw the activation of the defense grid. Weapons platforms that had been disguised as communications satellites powered up. Railguns hidden in craters unlocked their safety systems. Missile batteries that officially didn't exist ran system checks. Hana had been born on Mars, part of the first generation of humans raised off Earth. She remembered her father telling her stories about why they built these hidden defenses. "We're alone out here," he had said. "The galaxy isn't safe, so we prepare for the day someone tries to take what's ours." That day had arrived. Commander Ji-won Song stood on the bridge of Defense Station Echo, positioned near the outer edge of the solar system. His job was to monitor incoming ships and provide early warning of threats. For 15 years he had watched empty space. Now his sensors were about to become very interesting. "Commander," his sensor officer called out, "long-range detection has picked up the Vrelian fleet. 8,000 ships, exactly as intelligence predicted. They're on schedule to arrive in 11 days. Ji-won nodded. "Good, let them come. Maintain passive scans only. I don't want them to know we can see them this far out." Back on the council station, several ambassadors gathered in a private meeting room. The Catharan ambassador had shared his findings, and now they reviewed the data together. These were the older species, the ones who had seen empires rise and fall, the ones who remembered when the galaxy was different. 15,000 wars in 10,000 years, the Quillian ambassador said softly. Her species was one of the oldest, dating back 40,000 years. That's more than any species we've ever recorded. They've been killing each other since they invented weapons, another ambassador added. Their entire history is violence. No, the Catharan ambassador corrected. Their entire history is survival. Every one of those wars taught them something. Every defeat made them adapt. Every victory showed them new ways to fight. And they've never stopped learning. The Quillian ambassador pulled up footage from human historical archives. Soldiers in primitive armor fighting with swords, armies with gunpowder weapons, tanks rolling across battlefields, aircraft dropping bombs, nuclear explosions. Each era showed increasing sophistication in the art of killing. They turned everything into a weapon, she observed. Science, technology, even their own biology. And then they turned those weapons on themselves. Which means they know how to fight dirty, the Catharan ambassador said. They know ambush tactics. They know guerrilla warfare. They know how to fight when outnumbered, because they've done all of it to each other. One of the younger ambassadors shook his head, but there's still only one species. The Vrelians have conquered 47 worlds. They have centuries of experience fighting in space. What difference does human history make? The Quillian ambassador closed the historical files. Perhaps none. Or perhaps we're about to discover what happens when you attack a species that has spent its entire existence preparing for war, even if they didn't know it. At Earth's military headquarters, Admiral Minho gathered his command staff. Yuna Kang had prepared a full tactical briefing. The holographic display showed the Vrelian fleet's projected path, their formation, their capabilities. They're coming in a standard hammer formation, Yuna explained. Battleships in the center, carriers on the flanks, destroyers screening the perimeter. It's a formation designed to overwhelm defensive positions through sheer firepower. It's also predictable, Taehyung noted. They've used this same formation in their last 12 conquests. They don't adapt because they've never needed to. Suman studied the display. They'll expect us to form a defensive line near Earth. Traditional tactics would put our ships between the enemy and our homeworld. Protect what matters most. Which is exactly what we're not going to do, Minho said. He gestured and the display changed. The 387 visible human ships appeared, positioned near Earth as expected. But then new icons appeared throughout the solar system. Hidden ships in the asteroid belt, stealth destroyers near Jupiter, attack squadrons positioned behind the moon, drone fighters scattered across millions of kilometers. We're going to let them think they know where we are, Minho continued. And then we're going to hit them from everywhere they're not looking. Hyunwoo stepped forward with his historical analysis. In Earth year 1942, a place called Midway, the United States Navy defeated a Japanese fleet that was larger and more experienced. They did it through intelligence, positioning, and surprise. The Japanese didn't know where the American carriers were until it was too late. And in Earth year 1987, he continued, guerrilla fighters in Afghanistan defeated a superpower using tactics that turned the enemy's strengths into weaknesses. They didn't fight battles they couldn't win. They fought the war they could win. Minho nodded. The Vrelians think they know us. They think we're weak. They think this will be easy. We're going to teach them what happens when you underestimate humans. The planning session lasted 8 hours. Every ship received its position. Every captain understood their role. Every weapon system was calibrated. The solar system became a trap, and Earth was the bait. On the 10th day, Captain Do-hyun Park took his stealth destroyer to the edge of the system. His ship used technology humanity had developed in secret, technology that could hide vessels from most sensor systems. His mission was critical: eliminate enemy scouts and communication ships. Cut off their eyes and ears. Sir, the Vrelian advanced scouts just entered long-range sensor range, his sensor officer reported. Do-hyun smiled. Begin stalking pattern. Silent running. Let's see if they can even find us. Throughout the solar system, humans waited. 387 ships sat in plain view, looking vulnerable and afraid. Nearly 3,000 more hid in darkness, waiting for the signal. The Vrelians were coming, confident in their power, certain of their victory. They had no idea that humanity had spent 80 years preparing for exactly this moment. They had no idea that every human military officer had studied the tactics of Earth's bloodiest wars. They had no idea that the species they were attacking had survived 10,000 years by learning from every defeat and perfecting the art of violence. In 4 days, they would learn. In 4 days, the galaxy would discover what humanity looked like when it stopped pretending to be peaceful. The Vrelian armada entered the solar system with the confidence of predators who had never known defeat. 8,000 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel in a perfect formation, their engines burning bright against the darkness of space. War Marshal Krethva stood on the bridge of his flagship, all 6 eyes focused on the tactical display. Report, he commanded. His tactical officer gestured at the holographic display. 390 human ships detected, positioned in defensive formation near their homeworld. Standard defensive posture, no unusual activity. Krethva's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. They're going to make their stand at Earth. Predictable. How long until we're in weapons range? 6 hours at current speed, War Marshal. Maintain formation. Deploy scouts to map their defensive positions. I want to know every weapon platform, every satellite, every piece of debris that might hide a ship. The Vrelian scouts, fast ships designed for reconnaissance, broke from the main formation and accelerated toward Earth. Their sensors swept across the solar system, cataloging everything they found. Behind them, the massive fleet advanced like a hammer ready to fall. Captain Do-hyun Park watched from his stealth destroyer, hidden in the shadow of a large asteroid. His ship's sensors tracked the Vrelian scouts as they passed within 10,000 kilometers. They couldn't see him. The stealth technology worked perfectly. Target lock on Scout Group Alpha, his weapons officer whispered. Hold, Do-hyun replied. Wait for the others to get in position. Across the solar system, 15 other stealth destroyers tracked different scout groups. They waited in silence, invisible predators watching their prey move into position. All stealth units report ready, Do-hyun's communications officer announced. Do-hyun took a breath. Execute. 16 stealth destroyers fired simultaneously. The Vrelian scouts never knew what hit them. Missiles struck from impossible angles. Energy weapons burned through shields that were never raised. In 30 seconds, every Vrelian scout ship was destroyed. On the Vrelian flagship, alarms screamed. War Marshal. We've lost all scout ships. All of them. Krethva spun toward his tactical officer. What? How? Unknown, sir. They just disappeared from sensors. No distress signals. No indication of weapons fire. For the first time in his long military career, Krethva felt something unfamiliar. Uncertainty. But he pushed it aside. 8,000 ships. Even if the humans had some tricks, numbers would win. Numbers always won. Accelerate to attack speed. Deploy the hammer formation. We'll crush them with overwhelming force. The Vrelian fleet surged forward. Battleships moved to the center, their massive guns charging. Carriers launched fighter squadrons. Destroyers spread wide to screen the flanks. It was a formation that had conquered 47 worlds. On the ESS Indomitable, Captain Suman Lee watched the enemy advance. She stood on the bridge of humanity's flagship, her hands steady despite the fear in her chest. 390 ships against 8,000. Those were the odds everyone could see. All ships, this is Indomitable, she broadcast on the command channel. Maintain formation. Look scared. The human ships, actually advanced drones controlled by artificial intelligence, adjusted their positions nervously. They looked like inexperienced crews facing an impossible battle. The Vrelians saw exactly what they expected to see. Fear. Admiral Minho watched from the command center on Earth. Around him, dozens of officers monitored every aspect of the battle. Yuna Kang stood next to him, her tablet showing the positions of their real fleet. Enemy entering optimal range in 2 minutes, she said calmly. All ships standing by. Taehyung confirmed. Waiting for your order. Minho watched the Vrelian formation advance. They were committed now, their formation tight, their attention focused on the visible human ships ahead. Perfect. Spring the trap, he ordered. Throughout the solar system, nearly 3,000 warships activated their engines. They had been hiding behind asteroids in the rings of Saturn, in the shadow of Jupiter's moons, scattered across millions of kilometers of space. Stealth technology had kept them invisible. Now they announced their presence. The Vrelian tactical officer stared at his display in disbelief. War Marshal. New contacts! Hundreds of them. Thousands. They're everywhere. Krethva felt his blood run cold. That's impossible. Our intelligence said they had less than 400 ships. They lied, sir. The human fleet didn't charge in like honorable warriors. They didn't meet the Vrelians head-on. Instead, they attacked like wolves hunting prey. Captain Doyun's stealth destroyers hit the Vrelian communication ships first. Advanced missiles with electromagnetic pulse warheads detonated across the enemy formation, frying communication systems and sensor arrays. Within minutes, the Vrelian fleet was blind and deaf, unable to coordinate. Commander Hana Shin activated the Mars defense grid. Railguns hidden in craters across the red planet fired in sequence. Solid tungsten rounds accelerated to a fraction of the speed of light, tore through Vrelian destroyers like they were made of paper. The enemy shields were designed to stop energy weapons, not kinetic projectiles traveling at relativistic speeds. Fighter squadrons led by Seojun Yu swarmed the Vrelian carriers. The human fighters were smaller, faster, and more maneuverable than anything the Vrelians had encountered. Seojun had studied every dogfighting tactic from Earth's history, from World War I biplanes to modern space combat. His pilots flew like demons, targeting engine clusters and weapon batteries with surgical precision. Gold Squadron, focus on Carrier 3, take out their launch bays. Copy that, lead. Moving in! The human pilots didn't try to destroy the massive carrier ships. They just crippled them, leaving them floating in space, unable to maneuver or launch more fighters. From hidden positions throughout the asteroid belt, missile platforms opened fire. Thousands of long-range missiles launched in carefully calculated patterns converged on the Vrelian battleships. The enemy point defense systems tried to intercept them, but there were too many coming from too many directions. Explosions bloomed across the Vrelian formation like deadly flowers. War Marshal Krethva tried to regain control of his fleet. All ships, break formation, engage enemy vessels independently, but his orders couldn't reach most of his ships. The communication network was destroyed. Individual captains had to make their own decisions, and panic spread through the fleet. Admiral Minho's main battle group struck from behind Jupiter. Suman led the Indomitable and 50 heavy cruisers in a flanking maneuver that put them directly behind the Vrelian battleships. Human weapons technology, developed in secret over decades, proved superior to Vrelian shields. "Fire!" Suman ordered. Particle beams, quantum torpedoes, and plasma cannons unleashed hell. Vrelian battleships, the pride of their fleet, exploded or went dark as their power systems failed. The battle that the Vrelians expected to last days was decided in hours. Human tactics, refined through 10,000 years of warfare against themselves, proved devastatingly effective against an enemy that had grown comfortable with victory. Jiwan Song, commanding the outer defense ring, cut off every retreat vector. Any Vrelian ship that tried to flee found human destroyers waiting in their escape path. The trap was complete. 6 hours after the battle began, Krethva stood on the bridge of his crippled flagship. 7,400 of his 8,000 ships were destroyed or disabled. The remaining 600 were too damaged to jump away, surrounded by human vessels that could destroy them at will. His communication system, barely functioning, received an incoming transmission. A human face appeared on the screen. Admiral Minho Kim, his expression calm and professional. "War Marshal Krethva," Minho said in perfect Vrelian. "You attacked our home. You threatened our species. You came here expecting an easy victory. Instead, you found out what humanity looks like when we fight for survival." Krethva said nothing. What could he say? "You have two choices," Minho continued. "Surrender now, and your crews will be treated according to the rules of war. Refuse, and we will show you what we're really capable of. What you've seen so far, that was us being gentle." Krethva looked around his bridge. His crew was broken, his fleet destroyed. He had lost more ships in 6 hours than his empire had lost in 2 centuries of conquest. "I surrender," he said quietly. Throughout the solar system, the surviving Vrelian ships powered down their weapons and waited for human boarding parties. Fighter squadrons that had been fighting minutes ago now escorted damaged enemy vessels to secure positions. On Earth, people watched the battle footage in stunned silence. They had expected to fight for their survival. Instead, they had witnessed the most one-sided military victory in modern galactic history. At the Galactic Council, ambassadors stared at their displays with expressions of shock. The recordings showed tactics they had never seen. Weapons they didn't know humans possessed. A level of military coordination that shouldn't have been possible for such a young species. The Catharan ambassador leaned back in his chair, his 3 eyes blinking slowly. "They weren't just hiding ships," he said to the Quillian ambassador. "They were hiding everything. Their capabilities, their tactics, their true nature. For 80 years they let us think they were peaceful because it suited them. What happens now?" The Quillian ambassador asked. "Now?" The Catharan ambassador gestured at the battle footage still playing on the displays. "Now the galaxy realizes that humanity wasn't weak. They were patient, and there's a difference between choosing not to fight and being unable to fight." On the Indomitable, Suman watched the last Vrelian ship surrender. Her hands were shaking slightly, adrenaline still coursing through her system. They had won. Against impossible odds, they had won. "Ma'am," her communications officer said, "Admiral Minho is requesting all senior officers report to Earth for debrief." Suman nodded. "Set course for home. And someone get me a status report on casualties." The report came back quickly. 43 ships lost, 2,300 crew members dead. Against 8,000 enemy ships, it was a miracle. But each number represented a life, a person who wouldn't go home. Victory had a cost. It always did. Admiral Minho stood in the command center, watching the tactical display as the last enemy ships powered down. Yuna stood next to him, quiet for a long moment. "They'll never underestimate us again," she finally said. Minho nodded. "No, but now we have a bigger problem." "What's that?" "Now they'll fear us, and fear makes people do unpredictable things." The Galactic Council expected humanity to celebrate their victory and begin negotiations. Instead, Admiral Minho broadcast a message that reached every corner of known space. His face appeared on billions of screens across 300 worlds. "For 80 years, humanity has followed your rules," Minho said, his voice steady and cold. "We limited our fleets. We shared our technology. We acted peacefully. And the moment we showed restraint, you mistook it for weakness. The Vrelian Empire declared war on Earth because they thought we couldn't fight back. They were wrong." He paused, letting his words sink in across the galaxy. "We didn't come to your stars to conquer. We came to explore, to trade, to learn. But you've taught us a valuable lesson about how this galaxy really works. The strong prey on the weak. Might makes right. Peace is just the time between wars. So we adapted. We prepared. And now the Vrelian Empire has learned what happens when you attack humanity. The broadcast showed footage of the battle. 8,000 Vrelian ships destroyed or captured in 6 hours. The galaxy watched in stunned silence, but we're not finished, Minho continued. The Vrelian military threatens dozens of species. Their empire was built on conquest and slavery. Today we're going to change that. Today humanity stops pretending to be harmless. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, species began calculating what this meant for them. The peaceful humans had revealed teeth and now they were hunting. In Vrelian space, military installations prepared for the worst. Their home fleet, the 4,000 ships that protected their core worlds, went on high alert. War Marshal Krethva was a prisoner, and their main attack force was destroyed. For the first time in 2 centuries, the Vrelians felt fear. Commander Min-Jae Han stood on the bridge of his battlecruiser, the ESS Retribution. Around him, 200 ships formed up for the deep strike mission. These were humanity's best vessels, equipped with the most advanced weapons and crewed by veterans who had just proven their worth against overwhelming odds. Intelligence package uploaded, his tactical officer reported. We have locations for every Vrelian military installation, shipyard, and command center. The intelligence came from Eunji Choi, who had spent the last 3 days extracting every byte of data from captured Vrelian computer systems. She was a genius at code breaking and had found everything humanity needed to dismantle the Vrelian war machine. Coordinates confirmed, Min-Jae said. All ships prepare for jump. We're going straight into their space. No warning, no mercy. We're not here to negotiate. The fleet jumped to faster than light speed, bypassing the Vrelian defensive positions entirely. When they emerged, they were already deep in enemy territory. Min-Jae's fleet hit 12 targets simultaneously. Shipyards exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Military command stations went dark as human boarding parties seized control. Weapons depots were destroyed before the Vrelians could even raise shields. The Vrelian home fleet scrambled to respond, but they were scattered across their territory, protecting different worlds. By the time they gathered, the human strike fleet had already completed their objectives and jumped away. Admiral Minho watched the operation from Earth's command center. Taehyung stood next to him, monitoring communications across Vrelian space. Their military communication network is in chaos, Taehyung reported. They're reporting attacks everywhere. They don't know how many ships we have or where we'll strike next. Good, Minho replied. Keep them confused. Yuna, status on the boarding operations? Yuna pulled up the tactical data. General Bowman Jeon's Marines have secured 8 command stations. They're capturing the Vrelian High Command alive. No casualties among the prisoners. Bowman Jeon was a veteran of Earth's Marine Corps, a man who believed in winning wars through precision rather than brutality. His teams had trained for years in close-quarters combat and hostage rescue. Now they were putting those skills to use in the largest boarding operation in human history. On Vrelian Command Station Theta, Bowman's Marines moved through the corridors with practiced efficiency. They used non-lethal weapons where possible, stunning enemy soldiers rather than killing them. The objective was to capture leadership, not massacre troops. Target is in the command center, his squad leader reported. Admiral Korvath and his staff, move in, Bowman ordered. Remember, we want them alive. The Marines breached the command center with flashbangs and smoke. The Vrelian officers barely had time to react before they were subdued and restrained. Within 2 minutes, the entire command staff was in custody. Bowman approached Admiral Korvath, who stared at the human with all 6 eyes. Who are you? General Bowman Jeon, United Earth Marine Corps, Bowman replied. You're under arrest for war crimes against civilian populations. You'll be treated according to human military law. You'll get a trial. You'll get legal representation. And if you're found guilty, you'll serve your sentence. Korvath seemed confused. You're not going to execute me? That's not how we do things, Bowman said. We're not conquerors. We're liberators. Within 2 weeks, the Vrelian Empire's military capability was completely dismantled. Their shipyards were destroyed. Their command structure was captured. Their fleet was scattered and demoralized. An empire that had taken 3 centuries to build was brought down in 14 days. But something unexpected happened when humanity announced peace negotiations. The civilian Vrelian government, people who had lived under military dictatorship for 200 years, sent a message to Earth. Ambassador Ji-hee Park read the message in her office, her eyes widening. She immediately contacted Admiral Minho. "You need to see this," she said. Minho arrived at her office within minutes. She played the transmission from the Vrelian Civilian Council. "To the humans of Earth," the transmission began. A Vrelian civilian, not a soldier, spoke. "For 2 centuries, our military has ruled our people with an iron grip. They told us we were an empire, that conquest made us strong. They sent our children to die in wars we never wanted. Today you defeated that military. Today you freed us," the civilian continued. "We do not see you as conquerors. We see you as liberators. Please help us build a government that serves our people, not a war machine that serves itself." Minho sat back in his chair, processing this information. "They want our help?" "They're asking for it," Ji-hee confirmed. "The military ran everything. Now that it's gone, they don't know how to govern themselves. They want humanity to help them establish a democracy. This changed everything. Humanity hadn't planned to occupy Vrelian space or rebuild their society. They had just wanted to eliminate the threat. Now they had an opportunity to create something new, but the galaxy was watching, and not everyone was happy about humanity's sudden display of power." Tae-hyung burst into the office, his tablet showing urgent intelligence reports. "We have a problem. 14 species have formed a coalition. They're planning a coordinated strike on our colonies while our fleet is deployed in Vrelian space." Minho stood up. "Which species?" "Smaller, aggressive empires, mostly. They think we're overextended. They want to hit us while they can before we become too powerful." Ji-hee looked at the list of species involved. "Some of these have seats on the Galactic Council. They're supposed to be neutral. They're scared," Minho said. "We just took down the most powerful military in the galaxy in 2 weeks. They think we're going to conquer everyone, so they're trying to strike first." Yuna entered the office with a tactical plan already prepared. "I can have our fleet repositioned within 3 days. We can defend the colonies." "No," Minho said, making a decision. "We're not going to wait for them to attack. Tae-hyung, we know which species are part of this coalition?" "Yes, sir." "Intelligence has identified all 14. Then here's what we're going to do," Minho said. "We're going to position warships at every one of their homeworlds, just enough to be visible on their sensors. We're not going to attack. We're just going to sit there and let them see us." Ji-hee understood immediately. "You're sending a message." "We know what you planned," Minho nodded. "Stand down or we'll treat you like we treated the Vrelians. Let them wonder if we're bluffing." The plan was executed within 48 hours. Human warships appeared in orbit around 14 different worlds. They didn't fire weapons. They didn't make threats. They just sat there, silent and visible. Their weapons powered but not aimed. 13 of the 14 species immediately withdrew from the coalition. Their governments sent apologies to Earth, claiming the whole thing was a misunderstanding. They hadn't really planned to attack. It was all a mistake. The 14th species, the Halkith Union, decided to call what they thought was humanity's bluff. The Halkith launched a surprise attack on human colony Delta 7, a small settlement with only 50,000 people. They sent a fleet of 300 ships thinking humanity couldn't respond fast enough. They were wrong. Captain Sumin Lee had positioned her response fleet in the neighboring system, waiting. She had learned from the Vrelian battle. She knew the attack was coming before the Halkith did. The moment the Halkith fleet entered Delta 7 space, they found themselves surrounded. Human ships emerged from stealth, from behind the colony's moon, from positions that should have been impossible to reach so quickly. The battle lasted 23 minutes. Not a single Halkith ship escaped. All 300 were captured intact, their crews taken prisoner. The galaxy watched this demonstration of human military power with growing concern. Humanity had defeated 2 different fleets in less than a month. They had dismantled the most powerful empire in known space. They had shown they could position forces anywhere, anytime. Fear spread across the stars. If humanity wanted to conquer the galaxy, who could stop them? On Earth, Admiral Minho convened his command staff. They had won every battle. They had proven humanity's strength. But now they faced a bigger question. "What do we do now?" Tae-hyung asked. "The galaxy is terrified of us. Half the species think we're going to start conquering worlds. The other half is waiting to see who we attack next." Minho looked at his officers. Sumin, who had commanded fleets in battle. Yuna, who had planned their victories. Ji-hee, who understood galactic politics. Tae-hyung, who saw threats others missed. These were the people who had helped humanity survive. "We're not conquerors," Minho said. "We proved we can fight. We proved we can win. Now we prove that we fight for something better than empire." "What do you mean?" Jihi asked. "We're going back to the Galactic Council," Minho replied. "And we're going to change how this galaxy works." The Galactic Council chamber was more crowded than it had been in decades. Every species wanted to witness what would happen next. Would humanity demand tribute? Would they claim conquered territories? Would they announce themselves as the new galactic power? Ambassador Jihi Park walked to the speaking platform, the same place where she had refused Vrelian demands just 1 month ago. The chamber fell silent. 300 species waited to hear humanity's terms. "We didn't want this war," Jihi began, her voice carrying to every corner of the massive space. "We came to your stars in peace. We followed your rules. We limited our military. We traded honestly. We tried to be good neighbors." She paused, letting her words sink in. "And the moment we showed restraint, you mistook it for weakness. The Vrelians declared war because they thought we couldn't fight back. Other species planned to attack our colonies while we were distracted. You built a galaxy where the strong prey on the weak, where might makes right, where peace is just the time between conquests." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some species looked ashamed. Others looked defiant. "We proved we can fight," Jihi continued. "We defeated the Vrelian Empire in 6 hours. We dismantled their military in 2 weeks. We captured the Halkith fleet in 23 minutes. We did this not because we love war, but because we refused to be victims." Admiral Minho stood behind the human delegation, watching the reactions across the chamber. The elder species looked thoughtful. The younger, aggressive species looked nervous. "Good. So here are humanity's terms," Jihi said, her voice strong and clear. "We're not demanding territory. We're not claiming tribute. We're not building an empire. Instead, we're proposing something that should have existed from the beginning: actual peace." She activated the holographic display, showing a document humanity had prepared. The chamber erupted in noise as species began reading the terms. "First," Jihi said, speaking over the commotion, "the formation of a real peacekeeping force. Not observers who watch while strong species attack weak ones. An actual military coalition drawn from multiple species, with the power to intervene and stop aggression. Second, mandatory protection for developing species. No more conquering planets that can't defend themselves. No more enslaving populations because they have something you want. Third, strict limitations on military aggression. If you want to declare war, you need to prove just cause to the Council. No more attacking neighbors because you feel like it. Fourth, free trade zones enforced by neutral parties. Everyone benefits from commerce, so let's stop using trade as a weapon." The chamber was in chaos now. Delegates shouted questions. Some species protested. Others demanded clarification. Jihi raised her voice. "And one absolute rule that has no exceptions. Any species that attempts genocide or enslavement will face total demilitarization by the coalition. Not negotiation, not sanctions. Total removal of their ability to make war." She looked across the chamber, meeting the eyes of dozens of ambassadors. "You've had 10,000 years to build a just galaxy. Instead, you built one where the powerful do what they want and the weak suffer. That ends now. Either we work together to create real peace, or humanity will enforce it ourselves." The threat was clear. Humanity had the military power to back up their words. The Catharan ambassador stood up, his ancient voice carrying authority. "And if we refuse these terms? If we vote against this proposal?" Jihi met his gaze. "Then we'll know that this council is part of the problem, not the solution, and humanity will act accordingly." The voting took 3 days. Species debated, formed alliances, calculated their interests. The elder races who had watched empires rise and fall saw an opportunity for real change. The smaller species who had lived in fear saw hope. When the vote finally came, the results shocked even humanity. 247 species voted in favor. Only 37 voted against. 16 abstained. The galaxy had chosen peace. Admiral Minho stood in Earth's command center watching the vote results with his staff. Taehyung looked at the numbers in disbelief. They actually agreed. "I didn't think they would." "They're scared of us," Yuna said. "They voted yes because they're afraid of what happens if they vote no." "Maybe," Jihi said, joining them from the council station via holographic link. "But some of them voted yes because they're tired of living in fear. The smaller species have wanted protection for centuries. We gave them hope that things can change. Minho pulled up the implementation plan. Creating a true peacekeeping force would take years. Reforming galactic trade would take decades. But the foundation was laid. The galaxy had a chance to become something better. What about the Vrelians? Suman asked. She had returned to Earth after securing the captured Halketh fleet. Their civilian government is establishing a democracy, Jihi replied. They're writing a constitution based partly on human models. They've asked for our help training their new defense force, something small enough to protect them but not large enough to threaten anyone. They want our help? Suman seemed surprised. They do, Jihi confirmed. 5 years ago they were our enemies. Now they're asking to be our allies. It's strange how things work out. The next 5 years transformed the galaxy. The new peacekeeping force, drawn from 40 different species and led by human commanders, stopped 3 potential wars before they started. Piracy dropped by 78% as trade routes became secure. Slavery, once common in several empires, was nearly eliminated through enforcement and economic pressure. Admiral Minho retired from active military service and became an ambassador for interspecies cooperation. He traveled the galaxy, helping species resolve disputes before they became conflicts. The warrior had become a peacemaker. Jihi served as Earth's chancellor to the Council, a position that gave her authority to negotiate on humanity's behalf. She worked with species that once feared humans, building trust through consistent actions. Captain Suman commanded humanity's contribution to the peacekeeping force. Her ships patrolled trade routes, responded to distress calls, and showed the flag in troubled regions. She became known throughout the galaxy as someone who kept her word and protected the innocent. Commander Yuna established the Galactic Defense Academy on Earth's moon. Military officers from dozens of species came to learn human tactical doctrine, not for conquest but for protection. She taught them that the purpose of strength was to prevent war, not to wage it. Young pilot Seojun Yu, the ace who had led fighter squadrons in the Vrelian battle, trained the first mixed species squadron. Humans, Vrelians, Catharans, and a dozen other species learned to fly together, trust each other, and fight as one unit. The Vrelian Empire, now the Vrelian Republic, became one of humanity's strongest allies. The civilian government that humanity helped establish proved stable and progressive. Former War Marshal Krethva, imprisoned for war crimes, publicly apologized for the attack on Earth and encouraged his people to embrace democracy. His words carried weight and they helped heal old wounds. Not everyone was happy with the new order. Some aggressive species chafed under the restrictions. Some elder races resented humanity's sudden influence. But they all recognized reality. The galaxy had changed and there was no going back. On Earth, Director Taehyung Choi reviewed intelligence reports in his office. His job was to identify threats before they became crises. Today's report showed something encouraging. Unauthorized military conflicts down 92%, he said to Minho, who was visiting Earth between diplomatic missions. Piracy down 78%. Slave trade nearly eliminated. Treaty violations at record lows. Minho sat across from his old friend looking at the numbers. We did it. We actually did it. We scared them into behaving, Taehyung corrected. Fear isn't the same as respect. No, Minho agreed. But fear can buy you time to earn respect. And we're earning it slowly. Species are starting to see that we meant what we said. We're not conquerors. We're protectors. A new species made first contact with the Council that year. They were young, technologically primitive, just beginning to explore space. Their ship stumbled into Council territory, and their crew was terrified of what they might find. The Council convened to discuss how to integrate the newcomers safely. For centuries, new species had been exploited, their resources claimed by whoever found them first. This time was different. Commander Jiwon Song, who now led first contact protocols, stood before the Council with the alien delegation. The newcomers looked around the massive chamber with wide eyes, overwhelmed by the diversity of life. This species has just entered galactic society, Jiwon said. According to the new protection protocols, they're under coalition safeguard until they develop sufficient technology to defend themselves. No exploitation, no forced treaties, no claiming their resources. He turned to the alien delegates and spoke in their language, translated by human computers that had learned it in just 3 days of contact. You're safe here. No one will hurt you. No one will take advantage of you. We'll help you learn about the galaxy at your own pace. The alien captain, who had been terrified of making contact, looked around the council chamber with tears in his eyes. We were afraid you would enslave us or destroy us. Our history taught us that the strong always hurt the weak. Jiwan smiled gently. Your history was written before humans got involved. Things are different now. The vote to accept the new species under protection passed unanimously. Every species voted yes, even those who had once preyed on the weak. They knew what would happen if they voted no. Humanity had taught the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. Peace isn't kept by allowing the strong to prey on the weak. Peace is kept by making everyone too afraid to break it, and then proving that protection is better than conquest. On Earth, in a small garden outside the military headquarters, Admiral Minho met with his old command staff. Jihye, Taehyung, Yuna, Suman, Jiwon, and a dozen others who had been there from the beginning. They gathered to remember what they had accomplished and honor those who had died making it possible. 2,347, Suman said quietly, reading from the memorial wall. That's how many we lost in the Vrelian battle, plus another 812 in follow-up operations. 3,159 lives, Minho said. They gave everything so humanity could survive. So the galaxy could change. Do you think they would be proud of what we built? Jihye asked. Minho looked at his friends, the people who had stood with him when the galaxy tried to crush humanity. I think they'd be proud that we didn't become the thing we defeated. We had power. We could have built an empire. Instead, we built something better. Taehyung raised his glass. To the fallen. To the future. To peace earned through strength. They drank together, old warriors who had become peacemakers watching the sun set on Earth. Above them, stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, human ships patrolled trade routes. The Academy trained new defenders. The Council worked to solve problems through dialogue instead of war. The galaxy had whispered in horror when the Vrelians attacked Earth. They thought they would witness the extinction of a young species that didn't know its place. Instead, they discovered what happens when you attack humans. They fight back, they win, and then they make sure no one else has to fight the same battle. The sleeping giant didn't just wake up. It decided that everyone else deserved to sleep safely too.
And that in the end was humanity's greatest victory.